Hey everybody, welcome back to Young Bucks. This week the panel is discussing the Winter Olympics, Walmart's recent slump, and gun control. Stick around after the panel to hear Andrew walk us through tax season and the difference between an IRA and a Roth IRA. Thanks for joining us.
Hey everybody, welcome to What the Buck, the segment where we talk about money. I'm Andrew Hall. With me today, Matt Krebsbach. What up?
What up?
Ben Nye.
How's it going?
Doing well. And Sam Frost.
What up?
Switching up the order, keeping everybody on their toes. You never know what's going to happen here. Happy to be back. Great show last week. Shout out to the Young Guns for doing the Young Bucks thing. Great show. Lots of good feedback. I know that I heard specifically from Greg's mom and dad that he did a great job. So we've got at least 2 viewers that really enjoyed that. So great job by Greg. A couple topics today. Let's jump in with the important thing. Everybody's here for our sports takes. Winter Olympics. Ben Nye says the worst Olympics ever. That's what he says in the pre-production email. Ben, talk to us. Share your chagrin.
Well, I mean, I think I had a question mark by it too, but
but he meant it.
But I kind of meant it. And so for a few number of reasons. The first is that it's taking place in a vastly different time zone. Everything's delayed. And even the things that start at 8 p.m., which is even later than a UW football game, it seems, these days. On top of that, it's just the sports I don't think are that compelling. I feel like I'm watching the same thing over and over and over with a lot of these kind of more artistic events.
I mean, in fairness to Ben's points, I agree. There's a lot of sports that aren't that compelling to watch. But I feel like, if anything, the Winter Olympic Games have gotten a little bit better and that they're at least adding more compelling sports. Like, we're getting snowboarding. We're getting some of these things that are at least fun to watch. So, therefore, as a result of that, figure skating and ice dancing is a smaller percentage of the events being shown. We're actually getting some new sports, whereas in the summer games, we're really not getting anything new. Sam, you got any thoughts on the Olympics?
Yeah, so I just pulled up the medal count right now. Again, this is Tuesday, so it might change by the time this airs. But right now, the U.S. is 1, 2, 3, 4 in 5th place in total medals with 16. Norway's leading with 33.
How many of those are gold, too? Because we did this in the summer, like early days of the investing podcast with Tusk. You can win a gold medal. Like, we will cede that point. You can win a gold medal. You cannot win a silver or bronze medal. That's the same as losing a gold medal. So you can only get gold. Where are we on the gold tracker?
And so on the gold tracker, we are then tied for 4th place. Ooh. So move up a spot. We end up tying the Netherlands with 6 gold. Still Norway leading with 13 golds.
I feel like Norway always dominates.
Well, and so something I was going to talk about earlier is that I feel like we are less compelled to the Winter Olympics simply because we live in Georgia. Like, I've never been – my snowboarding was literally a PE in 7th grade on, like, a carpet AstroTurf hill thing. Like, that's all I've ever done.
That's Alabama snowboarding right there.
And so, like, I don't know that we – like – you two are from the cold places, so y'all might have a better appreciation for it. But I think snowboarding is super cool. I think skiing is really cool. I've never done it, so I don't fully have that appreciation. So it's not quite as compelling as watching somebody, sprinters run 100 meters and like, yeah, they literally finished 4 seconds faster than I would have.
I think when you talk about the U.S., it's like, the biggest Winter Olympic stories is always about the hockey. When the U.S. wins hockey, it's always just a dream come true, kind of always stemming from that. It was in 1982, 1980, I forget the year. I wasn't born yet. But, the fact that we actually don't have a competitive hockey team playing in the Olympics, and I don't know how you solve that problem, whether you say, okay, we go back and say only amateurs play in the Olympics, which is how it used to be. Or you say, okay, well, we can actually have some of those NHL players. Whatever it happens, the U.S. needs to be more competitive in order to build that excitement. Whenever the U.S. has a close game, I think when the U.S. beat Russia just last 4 years ago or had that shootout, that was an awesome game that I love to watch, but you just don't see that this time around.
When was that?
I think that was in 2012.
Yeah, right.
2014.
Personally, I've always liked the Summer Olympics better. I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's like the short, just watch a 100-meter swimming or 200-meter track meet or whatever it is. I don't know, but I've always been way more engaged in that.
I think it's just closer to what we've actually done before. You've jumped in a pool and tried to race your buddies.
I mean, I've skated around and I've tried to play hockey.
From curling country.
Yeah, but like Ben said, I would be really into hockey at the Olympics if it was like competitive. Like I would love to watch a legit USA team play a legit Canadian team or Russia. Like I'd be real hyped for that. But this year, who they lose to? They just lost like Finland or something and got eliminated, which, I mean, it's just not good entertainment, I guess.
And I think the problem the U.S. is having a lot for many things, and especially in sports, is that the world, it seems to be shifting. I mean, I went through and looked at the next large global sporting events, whether that's World Cup, Winter Olympics, Summer Olympics, and until Paris in 2024 for the Olympics, everything is either in close to Asia or in Asia, whether that's Tokyo, Beijing. I think Qatar has a World Cup, Russia has a World Cup, and the Olympics all in China or Japan.
Well, everybody knows the biggest sporting event of 2018 is, by and large, for most people in the world, they're going to view it as the Washington-Auburn game in football, and that's in Atlanta. Super Bowl's in Atlanta. So we kind of have this shift, and we're drawing a really firm line in the tectonic plates in terms of where the real sports are played here in the United States and where other sports are played. And what's interesting is how they continue to make us Americans go on the road for these. And they keep putting out fake snow and all this stuff and making us have to deal with that. And it's unreal. And then you still see, our curling team still stealing the show, not winning any medals, but by and large, that guy, what's his name, Matt Hamilton? That guy was awesome. He was sitting there curling. Only curler I saw who had a large enough stomach that when he was gliding forward with that puck thing, his gut was touching his shoe. That happened. Get a photo of that, put it in there. Pretty impressive stuff. You don't see that around the world. Only curler that was drinking beer in the locker room before it.
That's
Facts
just
only.
Pure athleticism.
Yeah.
One more thing about Ben, to address Ben's point. I feel like you're doing some mean sampling bias there, because isn't it LA has the Olympics in 2024, and then
Paris is in 2024, I think.
And I think
Who's in
LA is in
2020?
Canada, the U.S., and Mexico split the World Cup. The next
Pyeongchang.
World Cup, I think, right? Or is that not confirmed?
I think that's not confirmed, and you're dealing with FIFA there, and who knows?
That's corrupt FIFA.
So, Winter Olympics, not many fans here.
I think the Winter Olympics is cool. I do want to say that. I think they're
Sean
cool.
White's thing was dope. I got real into Sean
And
White's.
then that
Yeah.
kid, the 17-year-old kid, he
No,
was dope.
that's what I'm saying. First, I really enjoy the Winter Olympics. I just fade out because I feel like it goes from, I get real hyped for the snowboarding and Sean White, like the half pipe stuff and some of the skiing stuff. But then I feel like a lot of the coverage is ice skating, and there's like short routine, long routine, ice dancing, ice skating.
But that Chin guy, that American guy named Chin, did you see all those quad toes he did? Man, it was nuts. Calling him the Quad King. Segueing, Walmart. There's no great way to do this. We got to come down. Sam's going to demonstrate how to shop at Walmart here in a minute. But Walmart just getting wrecked. What was that, Monday of this week?
And today, too.
Yeah.
Today, just woof. We own some Walmart stock. We'll pretend we don't, but we do. Tough. Still going through this transition, trying to be competitive in a digital atmosphere. We've talked ad nauseum about Amazon and that threat to every online retailer. And then they're really trying to live in a new world, and Ben sent this summary out, but of trying to be a low-price provider in an environment where they're having to raise wages for people, and it's tough to make that work. Ben, you got thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I think they would characterize the thing that they're going through as a transition. I would characterize what they're going through as death. And the reason I say that is because Walmart built itself by being the low price, everyday low price. Remember, you go in and they had smiley faces and it said roll back everyday low price. You can go on Walmart, you knew it was the cheapest place in town. And now what they're doing is they're saying, okay, that was the old Walmart. The new Walmart is going to be a place where you have e-commerce. And it's going to be a place where the associates really help drive sales. So you go in, and someone making now $11 an hour base wage, which they've just raised it to, is going to help you and actually push product and push merchandise. And that's actually going to help margins over time. problem with that is that brand is a very, very difficult thing to change. And you've got a ton of people who are just above Walmart on the quality scale. Think of Target, for instance. And, if someone actually wants that quality, they're probably not going to go to Walmart for that. They go to Walmart because they know they have everything they need at a low price, and they don't have to go anywhere else. But now that Walmart's changing that, I think they're changing their identity to a certain extent, and I think that's a dangerous position for them to be in. Having said that, I have been wrong on the stock for a while, and whether or not that quarter actually changes things to the effect that it did in the stock price remains to be seen.
It's interesting because I've always you got Amazon, who's dominated e-commerce. You had Walmart, who dominated the brick and mortar. And you've got this kind of shift where Amazon's trying to get into the brick and mortar a little bit through like the Whole Foods acquisition and stuff like that. And then you got Walmart, who's then trying to go e-commerce and compete with them. And it seemed like them two have led the way. Everyone's playing catch up. And then when Walmart comes out and they're like, yeah, we're going to raise minimum wages, it's like all of a sudden, it's kind of like you said, they're having an identity crisis. And I saw that too. Like when you were talking about your update on Walmart, I was like, that's weird. It almost seems like they're behind the curve. Like now it's like they're chasing what Target's done. Target, has been criticized in the past for raising wages and getting political and whatever. But they've been, kind of attacking this just like, we treat people right. We care about our people more than we care about sales. And investors haven't really liked that. But it's slowly played out, and now Walmart's almost like chasing Target, and it's going to be difficult for them to make it.
Well, I mean, and here's the thing. I mean, they're pushing this digital new revenue stream. It's less than 1% of revenue. I mean, it's 0.8% of revenue, and that's a good quarter for them. And it's just not growing that much. I mean, okay, let's say it triples in size. It's 2% of the business. That means nothing. That means absolutely nothing when you're talking about raising the cost structure and losing. They've lost 20% on their margin over the last 2 years. Operating margins have gone from about 5.2% to about 4.3%, 4.4% is the guidance for next year. That's a fall of about 20%. So they're losing all that time. And they're getting all excited about potential for 2% growth on the revenue side. It's a very difficult balancing act that they're playing.
I thought this quarter was like another data point of showing how hard it is to actually do e-commerce. Like Walmart's in a tough spot because they have to, one, invest in it heavily, and two, do it smartly. Yeah. And like comparing it to Amazon, let's just call it the retail space of Amazon, they don't really have to do that. Like the expectations on their e-commerce side aren't really make a profit, where for Amazon it is. So they can just throw a ton of money there and not really worry about margins or cash flow or anything at this point.
Walmart's probably the best justification for Amazon trading at literally infinity times earnings.
Yeah.
That's big for Amazon though.
I think there's like this misconception that you just walk around your store, you take a photo of everything, you put the SKU up there, and everybody just buys it online like this is some easy task. That's just not the case, and especially when you think of how many people are buying things. Obviously not through going to walmart.com and browsing through the product. So then you have to compete for the ad space, the search space, things like that. It's expensive, and Walmart's not doing it well, and they're in a low enough margin business. It's going to be tough to ever do it well. So tough time for Walmart. Last topic we got is gun control. I'm sure this won't be controversial at all. We're not going to have Garrett Palmer, the office's resident NRA member, come out for this, but lots going on here. Obviously, the shooting last week at a school, it's really made this, I think, kind of a hot-button issue. It's dominated the headlines for longer than these stories tend to, and I think a lot of that is maybe some of it has to do with FBI action or lack thereof, and kind of this seems like maybe one of the more quote-unquote preventable school shooting tragedies in recent memory. But keeping gun control at the front of the talking point, at least from a political standpoint, but also having a financial impact, and not a great time to own gun stocks right now. Want to open it up to anybody that has any hot takes on gun control, other than we should probably do more.
I mean, the interesting thing is that a lot of those gun stocks have been in a downward spiral for the last 7-8 months. I mean, I think The old Smith & Wesson, which is now American Outdoor, that's down from $24 a share to I think $10 a share since last July. So, I mean, they've been struggling with sales anyway.
And didn't Remington just go bankrupt a couple weeks ago, or not Remington, or some like one of those major weapon makers? Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, you're good. What I see is that, I think there's a really delicate balancing act between preserving people's Second Amendment, which is the right to bear arms, but then also what comes with that. I mean, I don't think you're infringing on the right to bear arms if you regulate it like crazy. I mean, if you regulate automatic weapons like crazy and make it possible for people to own those weapons, while at the same time saying, you're going to have a satellite trained on you if you do that, then I don't think you're violating those rights, while at the same time you're acting somewhat responsibly. And I think not only the person who buys the gun needs to be checked, but the person's immediate family needs to be checked too.
And I think it's interesting, you mentioned the right. I mean, there's lots of things that we have the right to do, but there's still loopholes. Mm-hmm. And there's also a lot of things that we have the right to do, and there's still a bunch of stuff we have to do. Everyone in the country has the right to give financial advice. You got to submit to a regulator. You've got to pass a test. You've got to do other things to actually get registered and do that as a professional. Everybody has the right to sell real estate. If you want to be a real estate broker, you got to take a licensing exam. You got to do continuing ed, all of these things. So there's tons of things you're allowed to do, drive a car, whatever it may be. And what's unreal to me is how many of those things are more difficult to do than it is to buy a gun. I bought a gun, when was that? We went
2 Thanksgivings ago.
Yeah, 2 Thanksgivings ago. Me and Krebs and Garrett went up to Academy Sports. We went and had a couple beers, found a good Black Friday deal, bought a gun. I mean, it took had there not been so many people buying guns, it would have taken 5 minutes. Mm-hmm. But it was just a crowd. I mean, it was just unbelievably easy as a transaction. And I haven't killed anybody yet with it. Haven't done anything with it.
Shot a couple stop signs.
But had I wanted to, I could have. Haven't even shot any stop signs. I actually have not even fired the weapon yet. But it's one of those things where it's it's easy to see how easy it is to get access if you actually go do it. I'm with you. I even as a gun owner, I think there needs to be more. I mean, there needs to be more regulation, and I don't think that's hard to do. It's unreal that this is so politicized, and that this is something where people take a right in terms of the right to own a gun and just go up in arms, pun intended, about it.
And wasn't it the Orlando shooting last year where they said the guy had been investigated by the FBI a couple times or whatever for having terrorist ties, and then at the end they were like, well, I guess we can't find anything too substantive to say he can't buy a gun. And then, I agree with Ben, that should be super regulated. If we think you might have been friends or connections with Osama bin Laden, you're not going to get to buy a gun. I
think you got to be, squeaky clean.
I mean, yeah.
I'm pretty good with that bar being real high.
I don't understand how we can sit here and say, yeah, he may or may not be connected with terrorists who might, we don't want him to have a gun, but since we can't, 100% prove it, then...
Yeah, I mean, I think when you even talk about buying a house, you need personal references, you need letters from your previous apartment, landlords, and that's, just buying a piece of property. And I think when you purchase a weapon, there might even need to be a higher standard, or at least the same standard for that, because that has real implications.
And I think the other thing is just from a technology standpoint. I mean, every phone you buy now has fingerprint recognition or facial recognition, things like that. It's not like we can take every gun that's out there and retroactively fit it with something like that. But moving forward,
that'd be nuts.
Yeah, that'd be pretty cool. But moving forward,
dude, you might be onto something.
Any reason why you couldn't say you've got to have a fingerprint for this? The fingerprint has to match the database in terms of who bought it. So if I buy a gun, I'm clean. It's got my fingerprint. But if Sam wants to take that gun from me, he can't.
No,
and that just seems like that can't be that expensive. And people are like, oh, the price of guns going to go up. We're paying $1,000 for cell phones, and your gun's going to go from $400 to $500. Get over it.
I need you to clarify. When you say fingerprint, is that something a cop sees you carrying a gun, and he walks up and says, "Hey man, need to see
physically on the gun."
Yeah,
as it unlocking.
Yeah. That would be super cool. Cause I know
I'm pretty sure that was in a James Bond, in Skyfall or something.
Is it really?
Yeah.
Dude.
I haven't seen that.
We're not going to air this because we're on to
cut this.
something.
No, but it just seems like that'd be super. Same way with a phone. Like, you can steal my phone, but unless you have my passcode or fingerprint or you know how to do cool stuff with phones, you can't get in. You still, and that like destroys the argument of, well, criminals are going to steal over time. It doesn't do it immediately, but over time, if 60%, 50 years from now, 60% of guns out there have fingerprint recognition, and to get it reprogrammed, I sell a gun to Sam. We have to go together, do a deal, reprogram it to do that at some kind of enforcement office. That's going to prevent Ben from
As soon as that gun is touched by someone else, the feds should be right there.
Right.
And the thing is, like our phones or whatever, the fingerprint thing. So like if you do it, like you have to do your thumb like all different ways or whatever, so it gets the whole read of your thumb, so that if you touch it a different way than you might normally touch it, it'll still recognize it as your thumb. You could do the same thing somehow with a gun, and again on your phone you can erase fingerprints and put new ones on. And you touched on this earlier. We'll spend $1,000 on a cell phone. How much did your gun cost?
It's like $280.
$280. Would y'all think that a gun should cost more than a cell phone?
It's pretty ridiculous.
Yeah, yeah.
I think that's it. Anybody else closing comments on guns? We're pretty pro enforcement on some new stuff, I guess, is the consensus. I don't know. I know Krebs is a big gun guy.
Yeah, I don't feel like getting into it, but I pretty much agree with what you guys are saying. I just the status quo doesn't make sense. Like,
It's unreal.
I don't know how you can say this is fine the way it is. Like, it doesn't make sense.
And the
I'll
only
leave it there.
Like, it's outrageous and it's unreal how the conservative side of things, which is I think where many of us lie, make this such a big issue and defend this. It's inexcusable in my opinion. Hopefully that changes. I think that's maybe a thing where like young people think differently. So maybe that'll swing things. If we can get more Garrett Palmers out of the picture, we'll be in good shape. Young Bucks, thanks for being here. We got some other segments on your way. Hit subscribe. Leave us a 5-star review on iTunes. All that good stuff. Talk to you soon. Hey everybody, great news. You're going to be really excited about this. It is officially tax season. We're declaring it open. Tax season is here. Once you start rolling into the end of February, early March, everybody kind of goes into a panic. You start to see all these commercials for H&R Block. You start to see guys dressed up like Uncle Sam spinning a sign because that's what the real tax experts out there will do. But it's tax season. You can't avoid it. A couple things that we want to talk about today, specifically as it relates to tax deadlines and IRAs, retirement accounts for individuals. First and foremost, the tax deadline. Everybody always thinks about April 15th because for years and years and years, that was the day. You had to have your tax return postmarked by April 15th. But guess what, folks? That's changed. The old IRS getting a little bit lax these days. Now we get all the way until April 17th. Kind of random, kind of weird. I guess they thought we couldn't get it done on a Monday, which is the 16th, and they knew everybody's going to take Sunday off, so nobody's going to send anything on the 15th. So April 17th is the deadline. We've had the last couple of years, we've had an extension slightly past the 15th, but got to get your taxes in unless you file a formal extension. But April 17th is the deadline. But what's really important to you all out there, especially young people who are really ahead of the curve, listening to the Young Bucks podcast, watching our videos, all that good stuff, you want to stay ahead, need to go ahead and thinking about retirement. So start thinking about that right now. You may have a 401k plan, something like that, offered by your employer, but if you don't and you can't take advantage of that, you should think about IRAs. That's an individual retirement account. And it's a way for you to start saving money and investing money to get ready for retirement, even though that may be 20, 30, 40, 50 years down the road. So a couple things to know about IRAs. First of all, as it relates to April 17th, you can actually contribute for 2017 up until April 17th of 2018. So if you're filing your taxes and you're thinking, you know what, I'd like to set some money aside for retirement, I'm going to open up an IRA or a Roth IRA, either one. We'll talk about the differences in a minute. If you decide you want to do that, you still have time. And not only that, but you could go ahead and contribute and say, you know what, I want this to apply to last year. So you can do that up until the tax deadline, which again is April 17th. So it's a nice chance to actually work retroactively. The IRS lets you time travel back and say, hey, I did this last year. Maybe you didn't notice, but I did, even though it happened in March or even early April. So you can still do that. So let's talk about IRAs and Roth IRAs and some of the differences. And really the aspect of taxation is what this comes down to. So one thing you got to realize is that the government is going to tax you at some point or another. They're going to get their hands on your money. So you need to understand that neither an IRA nor a Roth IRA allows you to completely avoid taxation. So a traditional IRA, when people say IRA, they usually mean just traditional IRA. A traditional IRA allows you to contribute funds pre-tax. And what that basically means is I could contribute up to $5,500 a year, and it looks like I just never got that money on my income. So I contribute it, it's pre-tax, I can now invest it, it will grow. But when I take that money out, when I retire, maybe that $5,500 gets thrown together with $5,500 next year, continues to grow, gets bigger, 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 bigger. When I pull that money out, I'm going to then be taxed on it. And I'm going to be taxed on it like it's regular income. So I'm 65 years old, I retire, I've got this big IRA that I've been putting $5,500 into every year. I've been using Narwhal Capital Management as my investment advisor, so that's been growing nicely, although that's not guaranteed. It's been growing nicely over the long term. It's gotten bigger, and I start pulling money out. Maybe I pull out, $5 or $6 grand a month, whatever it may be. I'm going to be taxed on that like it's income, just like I'm still employed. It's going to be in my tax bracket. I'll be taxed on that. The alternative is the Roth IRA. The Roth IRA, you contribute after tax dollars. So this year when I contribute it, I'm not really getting a front-end benefit. They're basically saying after tax, you happen to have $5,500 left for 2017. You got this in by April 17th, 2018, so it counts. When we get it in, it can continue to grow. But when I get to retirement and I pull that money out, I'm not taxed on it. At that point, it's tax-free to me. So there is a difference. The best way to think about it is an IRA, you're getting the benefit right now. If you want to save money on your taxes this year, the best way to do it with a retirement plan would be an IRA. If you want to save money down the road and you think, hey, in the future, this account's going to be really big and I'm going to get a lot of money out of it, and I'm going to actually be in a higher tax bracket when I'm retired than I am right now, then maybe a Roth IRA is the way to go. Both of them, you can contribute up to $5,500 until you get old, and then you can do a little bit of a catch-up, things like that. There are some income restrictions if you're in the Roth IRA bucket. I'd encourage you to look those up or hit us up with an email, things like that. But the most important thing right now is it's not too late to get started on this. If you haven't done something like this already, you can still do it, and it can still be effective for 2017. So check that out. Look up the Roth IRA. Look up the traditional IRA. Remember to get your taxes in on time, because the last thing you want to do is pay a penalty on top of tax. Check that stuff out. April 17th. We'll keep reminding you up until then. If you have questions on tax prep or anything like that, hit us up on Twitter or wherever. The DMs are open. Get in touch with Greg and Chris, the social media guys. This is Young Bucks. Talk to you soon.
Tusk Media is a subsidiary of Narwhal Capital Management. Ratings and reviews of Tusk Media content are not to be construed as endorsements of opinions, analysis, or services offered by Tusk or its parent company. The opinions and predictions shared here are professional beliefs at the time of publication. We are not under duress from any of the corporate entities mentioned. This is not a solicitation to take any particular action. Although we are investment advisors, this information should not be considered investment, legal, or tax advice. We strive to be as impartial, insightful, and accurate as possible. We base our opinions, analysis, and calculations on information we believe to be reliable, but we cannot guarantee its accuracy. We can, however, guarantee that our opinions will sometimes be flat out wrong due to a variety of factors. Employees and clients of Narwhal Capital Management may or may not hold positions in the securities detailed and may or may not hold these positions in the future. A full list of all securities purchased, sold, or held during the 12 months preceding the date of this publication can be provided upon request. Unless otherwise noted, all data accessed via MarketWatch or the Bloomberg terminal. Past performance does not guarantee future results. A copy of Narwhal's Form ADV is available at the SEC's website, www.advisorinfo.sec.gov, or from Narwhal upon written request.